Okay. Good morning and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. I am now starting a new series called the Recollections of Bhante Punnaji Lessons. That means Bhante Punnaji has left behind a legacy of a lot of lessons, and all these are explaining in his own way, very detailedly, the teachings of the Buddha. So basically, the teaching comes from the Buddha, but it is Bhante Punnaji who delivered the lessons to help us understand better. And one of the most important things that we really need to understand from the teachings of the Buddha is actually what is this thing called mind? Because we keep hearing people say, purify our mind. So what does it mean? So today I'm going to share with you how Bhante Punnaji has explained about the mind using 3 parts of mental experience. Before I begin, I would like to point out one very important thing. The 2 important words. One word is called entity. The other word is called activity. Entity refers to something physical, something that exists, like your computer in front of you, your handphone, that is an entity. Your body, that is an entity. The other thing called activity, that is something that is not physical. It's something that is ongoing. It can be the result of a lot of things happening in the physical part, like for example, in the brain. If you talk about the brain, the body, the brain, and the neurons, these are entities. They are physically existing. But it is the activity inside the brain, the activity of these neurons that produce the experience of what we call mind. So in other words, mind is not an entity. Mind is an activity. It is the activity of the brain producing this experience. So realize that activity is something that does not exist. Activity is something that is going on. It's a process. You can experience it. You can feel it. And that's really what is going on. You will become aware of your mind having a consciousness and all that. So today we're going to take a look at what did the Buddha mean when he said there are 3 parts of the mind. There are 3 words to describe the mind. So the Buddha actually used these 3 words. Therefore, I call it 3 parts of mental experiences. So bear in mind, experience is something that is not physical, something you can feel, you can experience, you can become aware of, but it is non-physical. It's an activity, okay? The first word that the Buddha used is vijnana. Vijnana, Bhante translated as perception, simply put, but it is actually a process of perception. And this process is the panchakanda, the 5 aggregates. That means when light enters your eye, you are able to see something. If it is completely dark, you can't see anything. So light entering the eye, you can see something. Sound entering the ear, you can hear something, right? And then when your physical body comes into contact, you can touch something. And aroma entering your nose, you can smell something. Flavors coming into contact with your tongue, you can taste something. So the ability to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, these are 5 activities, 5 experiences. You see with your eyes. The eyes is something existing. It's a physical thing. That's an entity. The eye is an entity, but seeing is an activity. So now I hope you understand the difference between what is an activity and what is an entity. The eye is an entity, and the experience of seeing is an activity. The same with all the other 5 physical organs. And then, of course, the brain, that is the 6th sense. So the Buddha described the 6 senses. The 5 physical senses plus what goes on in the mind, in the brain, right? So that is the activity of the brain producing the experience of consciousness. So all this, we become aware of seeing something, hearing something, touching, smelling, tasting. All this awareness is called vijnana. You become aware. And this is the result of the 5 aggregates. So this is the first word that the Buddha used to describe the mind. The mind becomes aware of its environment because we have the 5 physical senses, and then we have the 6th sense with memory arising, recalling what we have experienced previously. This recalling is very important because we use the recalling in order to interpret. right? So if I were to show you this, you can tell this is a computer mouse. If I were to show you this, this is a clock, alarm clock. How do you know it's an alarm clock? Because you have seen all the different types of alarm clock in the world, and you remembered what you have seen in the past. So when the sense organ picks up this image, it starts to become aware what it is. And this awareness arises because of mano. In other words, the interpretation. Vijnana is just being aware of an object. It is not aware of anything else. Simply, you saw this object and that's all you have seen. Okay. One moment, I may have other people coming in. Yeah, okay. We have Sister Sujata joining in. Okay, good, welcome. Now, so whenever the five senses pick up images in the environment, okay, you'll have to mute. Whenever the five senses pick up any image in the environment, the mind becomes aware of a mental image. This mental image is actually called rupa. This is again another important definition by Ven Dr Punnaji. Ven Dr Punnaji translates the word rupa to mean mental image. Now, a lot of people call it the physical thing, like you see this clock. Some people call, oh, this is the rupa. No. When you see this clock, that mental image arising of a clock, that is rupa, the mental image, the experience. So realize that whatever the Buddha was teaching, everything is experiential. So rupa is really referring to the mental image arising in your mind of what you have perceived through your sense organ. And then the mind recollects the past objects, all the alarm clocks in the world that you have ever seen. And then you begin to call it alarm clock. Calling it an alarm clock is giving it a name, and that is nama. So in other words, again, nama is not about the physical object, but what your mind becomes aware of, because the mind interprets the meaning. This process of interpreting, that means having seen this object, the mind draws on memory of the past in order to find, oh, what is this object? What does it look like? And it looked like all the alarm clocks you have ever seen. And this process of drawing from memory is categorized identification. That is papancha. Categorized identification means you identify this object based on category. So this is the category of an alarm clock. This is the category of a computer mouse. So these are all categories, categorization, because your mind has recalled something similar. I'm going to show you one object now and tell me, what is this? You have no idea. You wouldn't know really. Why? Because it doesn't look like anything you may have seen before. You see? But you know what this is. It's an alarm clock. But how do you know it's an alarm clock? This is the first time I'm showing you ever. You have never seen this particular alarm clock ever in the past. You may have seen 1,000 other types of alarm clock, but not this one. But you know it's an alarm clock because your mind drew on the memory of past, and that interpretation is called papancha, and therefore you give it a name, alarm clock. That's nama. Nama is what you call this. Rupa is the mental image of having seen this object arising in your mind. Rupa is not the physical object. That is one of the wrong translations. But the Punnaji has pointed out the word rupa is not referring to the physical object, but the mental image of what you have perceived with your senses about the physical object. You have seen it with your eyes arising in your mind. That is rupa. So I hope that part of it is clear. And then that knowing now what this is, knowing this is now an alarm clock, realizing this is an alarm clock, this is the experience of knowing, cognizing the experience. And this is Dhamma. This is Dhamma with a small d. The word Dhamma is actually, Dhamma means experience. A lot of people translate the word Dharma to mean truth, Four Noble Truth. That's the Dharma. No. The word Dharma, the real meaning of the word Dharma is experience. So you now experience seeing this thing. So that experience itself is called the Dharma. And as a result of having seen this thing, the mind produces two things. Concept. Now you have a concept. Oh, this is an alarm clock. And behind this concept is a whole lot of stories. You'll be wondering, oh, billy.tan uses a silver one. Oh, does he like a silver one? Does he prefer black one? Oh, I prefer green alarm clocks. So all these are called concepts. You know, so you start to have the concept that you like a green alarm clock, but you notice that billy.tan has a silver alarm clock. So all these are concepts. And then concepts come with choices, because concepts are not absolute truth. They are basically what the mind has arrived as some kind of a conclusion. Now you have choices. So you're able to choose. Your choices would be, oh, I prefer a green alarm clock. I don't like a silver alarm clock. So these are choices. So this is the work of the mano. And from psychology, mano is actually called cognitive process. And Bhante calls it cognition and conception. Cognition is the process of identifying and labeling the item. And conception is having now an idea what it is, you begin to choose what you want to do with it. So this is cognition and conception. Concepts. People begin to favor certain concepts over other concepts. So this is really how that mano is working. Right? And then the third word that the Buddha used is called chitta. And in psychology, this is called affective process. Affective because it affects the entire being. Affective process. And Bhante Punnaji translated as mood and temperament. Simply because this affects us. When we experience it, it affects us. So how does it affect us? Whenever we see an object, we can see this, we begin to feel something about it. Like some of you may have felt, I don't like silver alarm clock. I prefer a blue alarm clock or green alarm clock or black alarm clock. So that feeling is Vedana. You feel that you don't like this. That is a Vedana. You feel it. And then you begin to react to it. That reaction is Tanha. Tanha is of three kinds. I will come to it later. But you begin to react to it. Right? You begin to... and this reaction is called Tanha. A lot of people translate Tanha as craving. Bhante Punnaji again pointed out it is not craving. Give me a second. Someone is trying to get in also. A bit late. Okay. All right. So emotional reaction is the Tanha. And that's why it leads to what Bhante Punnaji calls mood and temperament. And these are your emotional states. Mood refers to whether you like something, you feel good about it. If you don't like something, you don't feel good about it. You see? This feeling good or not feeling good, that is your mood. This is coming from Vedana, your feelings. Temperament refers to your reaction. What do you want to do about it? Do you want to get rid of it or do you want to get it? Or if I show you $1 million in front of you or a gold bullion, a piece of gold, you like it so much, maybe you want it. So wanting something, don't want something, hating something, all that is your reaction. That is temperament. So temperament refers to the reaction. Mood refers to how you feel about what you have just experienced. So this is really the part of the mind called the chitta. And there's also another aspect of the chitta. Whatever you feel, whatever your reaction is, you have the tendency to personalize it. And Bhante used the word upadana. And in fact, this was the word used by the Buddha, that we personalize our experience. And this personalizing of the experience makes us cling on to it, makes us feel that, oh, I like it, I don't like it, the I exists. The I, me, or mine arises. The moment we personalize anything, the I, me, or mine arises. And this leads to the delusion, right? A delusion of a self-centered existence. This is the delusion. And this delusion is called bhava tanha. So in other words, reaction, tanha, is of two kinds, well, actually three kinds in a more complex form. But the two basic one is either you like it, that means the lobha, or you don't like it, you want to get rid of it, that is dosa. But all of it leads to the notion, when you begin to personalize that experience, it leads to the notion that there is a self-centered existence. I am feeling it. I see this. I hear that. I don't like this. I don't like silver clocks or silver alarm clocks. I like green alarm clocks. So the I, me, or mine arises. This silver alarm clock is making me feel unhappy. I don't like it. It's hurting me, you know, and that kind of thing. So that is why we have this self-centered existence, and that is the delusion called moha. So you have lobha, dosa, moha. We'll come to that in a moment. So these are the three aspects of the mind. In summary, basically, the first part is about the senses picking up what is in the environment. 5 physical senses picking up what is in the environment, producing the perception that, oh, I have seen something, right? Having seen something, you become aware of it. That is vijnana, aware of what you have seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch. And as a result of that, I have more people coming in. Just a second. Why do they keep coming in late? Okay. So having seen, heard, smelled, tasted, or touched something, right, you become aware of an object in the environment. That awareness leads to cognition. Cognition simply means you begin to interpret it based on your past experience. You know, looking at having seen this alarm clock now, because you have seen 100 different alarm clocks before, you have never seen this one before. This is the first time in this sharing that you're seeing this, and yet you know it's an alarm clock because you draw from your memory of all your past experiences in the past of hundreds of alarm clocks you have seen, and that is called papancha. Then that mental image of the alarm clock is the rupa, and the name you call it alarm clock, that is nama. So I hope you now understand that rupa is not talking about the physical object, but rather the mental image of what you have experienced about the physical object. Nama is the label you give, the interpretation as a result of all the memory from your past experiences. Because you have not seen this object before, so you would not know what this is. You have not seen something similar to this, so you wouldn't know what it is. Therefore, you are not able to interpret. Right? You don't have a recollection of past memory of something looking similar to this. Or maybe you have, but it's not what this object is. You may think it's something else, right? So because you draw on past memory. All this is the experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and creating the concept behind it. That experience is called Dhamma. This is your mental experience, okay? And you begin to have concepts, and concepts lead to choices. So when you see this alarm clock, the concept is now you are aware there's a silver alarm clock, but you are also aware your own personal alarm clock is black, or maybe green, but you prefer the green or the black alarm clock. You don't prefer this. Therefore, you have choices. You have choices in life because of that. So being aware of something leads to the concept. Concept leads to choices. And then the choices are arising from your emotions. So chitta is the third word that the Buddha used to describe. Simply put, chitta is actually emotions, your emotional mind. But in psychology, it is called affection. Okay. In psychology, this is called affection or affective process because it affects you. And it leads to mood and temperament, right? And mood and temperament is how you feel about it, and what are you going to do about it, and doing about it is the tanha. How you feel about it arises because of the feeling, the vedana. Right? So the vedana makes you feel something about it. You like it, you don't like it, you react to it. If you like it, you want more of it, you want it. That is lobha. If you don't like it, you want to get rid of it, you want to push it away, and that is dosa. But you begin to personalize that experience, upadana, leading to the notion that I see that. I see the alarm clock. The I, me, or mine. I don't like this, or I like this. It is affecting me, right? So the I, me, or mine arises, and that is the delusion of a self-centered existence, moha. So feelings lead to emotions, urges, that urging you to do something. Emotions drive you to do something, to react. And that reaction is always your personal reaction, not somebody else's reaction. It's your own personal reaction. If somebody else reacted, that is their own personal reaction. But you yourself have a personal reaction. And you personalize this, the upadana. One quick word, upadana comes from two root words, upa and adana. Right? Adana. Let's take a look at the word adana. You know what the word dana is. Dana is giving. Giving. Adana is the opposite of giving. Taking. Adana, taking. So upa is inside. Going inside, within. So taking inwards, personalizing. That is the correct meaning of upadana. Bhante Punnaji made a very, very precise translation of that. Other people call it clinging, grasping, right? Clinging or grasping and all that. But in the real meaning, a more precise meaning is bringing inwards, personalizing, right? So you can see here, there are several translations. There are several translations that Bhante uses, which are not the common translations, right? Vijnana, Bhante calls it perception, not consciousness, because consciousness is a big thing. Vijnana is not the big thing, not about the whole mind. You know, Vijnana is just one aspect of the mind that is aware of objects. That's all it is. Vijnana is just one aspect of the mind aware of objects in the environment because of the five senses, because of Panchakanda. So there, Vijnana, translated as consciousness, can be confusing. Because when you talk about consciousness, you're really talking about everything else. You're talking about conception, you're talking about reaction, you're talking about personal feelings, you're talking about the notion of a self-centered existence. So consciousness is a whole lot of things. So the word consciousness is very confusing. Vijnana, as Bhante Punnaji translated it, is perception. Having perceived something from your environment. And the other words that Bhante translated is rupa, which is mental image, the perceived image in your mind. And nama, the label you give it, the meaning you give to it. Not about physicality or mentality, right? I think many people translate rupa as the physicality, physical, and nama is the mentality. No, it's actually mental image of something you have perceived and the label you give to it as a result of interpreting it with papancha. Okay? And again, Bhante Punnaji distinctly described these three different aspects of the mind are different, which is the reason why the Buddha used three words. Why didn't the Buddha use one word? Right? And that's why many translators made a simple mistake. Every time they see the word vijnana, they call it consciousness. Every time they see the word mano, they call it mind. Every time they see the word chitta, they call it mind. They don't differentiate. So the word mind becomes very confusing. What is mind? But we know mind is not one thing. Mind is a whole lot of other things. Being aware of things, right? Having thoughts, having concepts, that is mind. And then liking, disliking, that is mind, right? And then reacting, that is decisions of the mind. Self-centered existence, that is mind. So actually mind is very vague. That's why Bhante Punnaji used very precise words: cognitive process, affective process, and mood and temperament. And these are very, very accurate things. I just want to break off and very quickly explain why Bhante did all this. So those of you who, for the benefit of those who are not aware of Bhante's background, first, I would like to say, when Bhante was a youngster, he learned meditation very deeply, right? And he became actually very good at meditation as a young person. But because he came from a wealthy family, his mother did not want him to become a monk, wanted him to study. And he was a very smart, very brilliant man. Bhante definitely had very high IQ. So he went to medical college and became a doctor. While his mother was still alive, he did not want to renounce and become a monk. So he became a doctor, medical doctor. So first, as a medical doctor, he knew a whole lot of things about the body, about the internal organs and all that. So Bhante was very much aware of all these things as a man of science. He was a medical doctor. When in his 30s, his mother passed away, and then he renounced and became a monk in his 30s and gave up all his wealth. He was the sole heir to a very wealthy inheritance from his family, but he gave it all away to his uncle. He didn't have any brothers. He has a sister, but he gave it to his uncle and so on, his father's brother. So basically, he gave up all that, became a monk, and during his monkhood, before he became a monk, while as a youngster, he had a very deep interest in the English language. So he actually became very, very good at using English language. He had a very impeccable command of the English language, a very wide vocabulary, and a very deep, good and accurate and deep understanding of English words. And that helped him a lot. And that's why the moment he became a monk, his preceptor and all his seniors said, "Oh, you speak such good English. You're so good in English. Go to America." So as when he became a monk at the early stage, he was already sent to America. He was already allowed to become fully ordained and go to America and start all these activities in America because of his command of English. While in America, he then went on to study at the university and obtained 2 doctorate degree. First one is in psychology. Sorry, not psychology. The first one is in philosophy. So he studied comparative religion. So he understood Christianity and Buddhism, right? So he had a doctorate degree in philosophy, Western comparative religion. Then he went on to get a doctorate degree in psychology. Now he had a deeper understanding of the modern psychology, the science of the mind. So with that background, right, medical doctor who knows everything about the internals of the body, impeccable command of English, philosophy doctorate, and psychology doctorate, he was able to understand the Buddha's teaching in such a way no other monk in the world can even come close. It's true. How many other monks in the world do you know has an impeccable command of English, coming from Sri Lanka, where he had a deep understanding of the Pali, and is a medical doctor, knowing about the body, and has a doctorate degree in philosophy, comparative religion, and another doctorate degree in psychology, where he could understand very deeply the workings of the mind from modern science. So how many monks are like that? Such a monk come once in 1,000 years. This is why it is so important to appreciate what Bhante Punnaji's lessons are all about. He was explaining the Buddha's teaching in such a way that helped us tremendously. So moving on. Now, what I have described is very much connected to the Four Noble Truths. So very quickly, we won't go into too much detail. The first Noble Truth is about these 8 kinds of suffering. The first 4, birth, aging, illness, and death. That's very straightforward. They are suffering. Number 5 is separation from what is pleasing. That is suffering. That means when we experience something we like, then we become separated from it. We lost it. Then it hurts us. For example, what is one physical object you have right now? Many of you in your pocket or in your purse or whatever, or right in front of you, you're using it, which if you lose it, you get very, very angry. It's your mobile phone. So if you lose your mobile phone, you will experience number 5. Separation from what is pleasing is suffering. And the other thing, if you have lost your mobile phone, now you found it. Oh, you found back your mobile phone, union with, before you find it, you've lost your mobile phone, okay? Now you end up with this condition where you don't have a mobile phone. You have to use old-fashioned technology, right? You may have to use an old phone you had, which is not very nice. So now you're stuck with something unpleasant. Being stuck with something unpleasant is the union of displeasing. That is suffering, okay? And you have a wish. Your wish is you find your phone, but you never found your phone. You lost it. You couldn't find it anymore. So you have a wish, what you want, but you are not able to get what you want. So it is suffering. So, and this is another very extreme form of number 7 suffering. Now, if you're in that condition, I'm not pointing at you, so don't take it personally. Some people wish to have a family, wish to get married, settle down, have a family. They don't want to live alone or go through old age alone. But all through their life, they may not have been able to find a suitable partner. So by the time they reach old age, they realize, oh, how I wish I have found a suitable partner. So this number 7 applies to that. Not getting what one wants, having a family, okay? Then finally, the 4th one, I'm using Ven Dr Punnaji's translation. Personalizing the 5 constituents of the process of perception. 5 constituents of process of perception, Ven Dr Punnaji was referring to the Panchakanda. Other people's translation will be clinging on to the 5 aggregates, right? So this number 8, other people's translation is clinging on to the 5 aggregates. But what Ven Dr Punnaji was saying that we are personalizing the 5 constituents of the process of perception. The 5 constituents of the process of perceptions, or what we call the 5 aggregate, is referring to the ability to see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, and remember. So when you experience seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, you start to personalize that experience. That is suffering. You see something beautiful. Oh, so nice. I like it. Now, if you begin to cling on to that, you begin to personalize that. And if you don't get it anymore or it's gone, then it's suffering, right? So those of you who had wonderful vacation somewhere in some beautiful country, of course you have good memories, but if you think of it as just memory, it doesn't hurt you. But if you are yearning, how I wish I can go back there, how I wish I didn't stop my vacation, how I wish I could stay there forever. That wishing, clinging on, the personalizing of that, what you have seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch, that itself will lead to suffering. So these are 5 kinds of suffering. But the Buddha categorized them into 3 main causes of suffering, and that is the second noble truth, okay? So the first noble truth is to be understood. We have to understand what is suffering. That means the condition of suffering. What is suffering? The next part is about the causes of suffering, the second noble truth. The second noble truth is about the cause of dukkha, cause of suffering. And the Buddha pointed out the real cause of suffering is when we react. So it's really tanha, which is commonly translated as craving. So I just put up craving there just to show you. This leads to renewed existence. That means the thinking that I exist, the continuous thinking of self-existence. So this is a reaction. Tanha is the reaction. And when we experience suffering, one of the things we always like to do is to look for something pleasant, something delightful, something lustful in order to relieve ourselves of suffering. And that will bring us more suffering. That is why it's the cause of suffering. One of the reactions when we feel unpleasant, when we've experienced suffering, one of the reactions of that experience is we look for something that is pleasant, that is delightful. Some people, when they experience suffering, they like to listen to certain music. Some people, when they experience suffering, they like to go and see a movie. Some people, when they experience suffering, they like to play a certain sports. So we always look for something to delight us to get out of this suffering. And that is one of the reactions. It can lead to more suffering. But there are three kinds of reaction. Now, again, very clearly, Ven Dr Punnaji translated the word tanha to mean reaction, right? It is not just craving or clinging, right? It is reaction, emotional reaction. It is our emotions, our chitta that reacts. So tanha of three kinds. First kind is sensual, tanha of sensual pleasures. This is kama tanha. That means when we react to what is pleasant, what is enjoyable, the sensual pleasures. So kama tanha is our reaction to pleasant experiences. The second type of tanha, the first type of tanha reacting to these pleasant experiences is commonly called lobha, lust, and then greed. We begin with liking. Liking leads to lust. Lust means now we want more. As we want it, we become greedy. I have it, I don't want to give it to another person. I have now earned $1 million. I'm not going to give it to the charity. I want to keep it all. So that becomes the greed, right? Whatever we get, we want to hang on to it. So liking turns to lust, lust turns to greed. This is the first type of tanha, kama tanha. The second type of tanha is tanha for non-existence. This is the way it's translated. But the real meaning is vibhava tanha. This is our emotional reaction towards unpleasant experiences. Vibhava. Bhava is existence. V means to get rid of it, a removal. So in other words, we want to get rid of this, whatever is the unpleasant experience. That's why it's called vibhava tanha. Our reaction to something that is unpleasant, we want to get rid of it, and it leads to the condition called dosa. Dosa starts off with dislike. I don't like it. And then when you have a dislike, it leads to aversion. Aversion comes from the root word avoid. You want to get rid of it, push it away. Now, if you continue to push it away and you are not able to get rid of it, what happens? It leads to anger and hatred. So dosa begins with disliking, leading to aversion, trying to avoid it. And if you can't avoid it, you reach a stage where you become angry and hateful for it. Anger and hatred arises. So this is really the second type of reaction. And the third type of reaction is the reaction of continued existence. This is really called bhava tanha, as I pointed out before. When you begin to personalize every experience you have, and you say, I feel this, I am enjoying this, me or mine becomes so strong. This is the bhava tanha. It leads to the condition called moha. Moha is the delusion of self-centered existence. So this is really the three types of reaction. So it's very important to realize that all this arises because of the emotional mind, the chitta. And that's why it's very important for us to learn to purify the chitta, okay? So otherwise, we will continue to react with tanha. So again, tanha is really not craving. Craving is not a good translation. It is emotional reaction. And this has to be abandoned. We have to let it go. Give up, letting go. It's not avoiding. You can't avoid evil. These are evil tendencies. They arise within us. You can't avoid it. You have to learn to let it go, abandon. And this is actually in the Four Noble Truths Sutra, that this has to be abandoned. The cause of suffering has to be abandoned. The condition of suffering, the first noble truth, the condition of suffering has to be understood. The cause of suffering has to be abandoned. So all these are explained in the Four Noble Truths. And the third one, of course, when you're able to give it all up, you then attain arahantship. So basically, when you reach that stage where you're able to let it all go and you get rid of all of tanha. So in other words, the arahant has no tanha, fading away, cessation of all tanha, and basically giving up, relinquishing this emotional reaction. You let go emotional reaction. You become free from it. You are no longer bound by your emotional reaction. And you no longer rely on it. You don't depend on emotional reaction for your happiness. So basically, this is what the mind is all about. It is leading to our emotional reaction that controls us, right? That we have to realize. We have to practice until fruition. We are able to give it all up. And the practice, of course, is made of eightfold path, right? I won't go much deeper into the eightfold path. Basically, this is to be cultivated. The Fourth Noble Truth is the eightfold path. So you can see what Bhante Punnaji has explained about the mind. It all comes back to the root teaching of the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, right? So all this practicing is to learn how to let go your evil ways and also learn how to live a good life, sila, a moral and virtuous living by practicing right speech, right action, right livelihood, and right effort. So these are all part and parcel of living a good life. Now, the Buddha's teaching, if we were to practice it, all the Buddhas only teach 3 fundamental practices. And it is translated commonly as avoid evil, do good, purify mind. But Bhante Punnaji translated it as abandon evil ways, live a good life, and purify mind. That's why you understand now, because of the arising of this emotional tendency, we got to learn to abandon them, as mentioned in the Second Noble Truth, learning to abandon them, abandon evil ways. And here, the Eightfold Path, talking about living the good life, the virtuous behavior, sila, practicing sila, with right speech, right action, right livelihood, and right effort. Okay, so that's basically it. Our mind is constantly battling between thinking and feeling, right? So the battle is constantly going on. So I hope you have understood those 3 parts of mental experience. Let's go back to the 3 parts of mental experience. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so that more or less completes what I wanted to present about the 3 parts of mental experiences. Mind is an experience. Mind does not exist. The brain exists, the activity in the neurons, interaction in the neurons, that produces the experience of the mind. And there are 3 parts of it. The awareness of objects, vijnana, the interpretation of what was perceived, mano, and the reaction, the feeling and reaction to what you have just experienced in your mind, that is chitta. So that's it. We are open to questions. If any one of you have questions, you unmute, and then you can start asking the question. You have to unmute first. I can't hear you. Anyone has a question? Unmute. You have to unmute your mic. Please unmute your mic. Your mic is muted. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Brother Billy, for explaining it. Really very good. I just want to ask about letting go. So when the situation is happening right now, how do you let go? How do you let go? Like
Okay.
Okay, like now durian season. You look at the durian and you want to eat. You know that you cannot take too much, but you want to. So how do you let go? Because he's greedy. He's greedy right now.
And that basically brings us to this Four Noble Truth. right? You are experiencing, something that is pleasant, and you don't want to be separated from it. So you're experiencing number 5. You don't want to be separated from it. That's why it's hard to let go. You have to then consider what you see as durian. Now, for those of you who are in the Western world, I think Sister Ariadna and Sister Nora, durian is the king of fruits. Some of you may be aware. It's the king of fruits in Malaysia and Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore. Just about everybody loves durian, right? Basically. And durian is such a very special fruit. So a lot of people are craving for durian. They can't let go. Now, the question is, how do we learn to let go? Think of what you have perceived as something out there. Don't personalize it. The reason you have difficulty letting go is because you have personalized it. And what do I mean by saying you have personalized it? You have basically taken the view that I love durian. Now, if you were to change your mind and say, nah, I don't really love durian. Now, if you can take your mind and say, durian is just a fruit. I don't have to love it. Now, if you can take this kind of attitude, reframing your mind, rethinking what you are experiencing, instead of personalizing what you are experiencing. So you have personalized it. Number 5 here, you have personalized the experience of enjoying durian. You got to learn to say, durian is just durian. Don't personalize it. You can learn to depersonalize it, and then it's easier to let go. But that learning is not quickly and easily achieved. That can come through meditation. So by practicing samatha meditation, which is the meditation centered around stilling the mind, peace of mind, you begin to then realize that life is peaceful. And whatever happens out there, these are just external objects. You don't have to personalize them. So if you can practice a meditation centered around that, it can help you not personalize the liking of durian. There's also other things that's why I also learned NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming is a very powerful technique that can help people to change their attitude towards a certain experience. So the Buddha also taught some of this. There's one particular sutra, I forgot the name, but it is in Ven Dr Punnaji's level 1 book at the end there, where there are 5 ways of calming the mind, right? So these are the 5 different ways. And these are actually techniques that are employed by neuro-linguistic programming. So it's basically 5 ways that can help you let go whatever in your mind that is causing you to react. So those are the 5 ways. I have spoken about it. Maybe, sister, I will send you the link of my explanation of those 5. Then you can understand it better. So in other words, the solution to your question is to learn not to personalize every experience. When you have an experience, look at it as, oh, that was a good experience. That's it. Nice. It was enjoyable. And that's it. Don't say, I like it. I love it. I want more of it, Because you keep saying, I like it. I love it. I want more of it. That is what causes your suffering. Okay? I hope you understand the not personalizing aspect. Okay?
So that means that every time when anything that we do, we know the experience and know that it's just an experience.
It's just an experience. Precisely. You got it. Everything in life is just an experience. And just look at it as an experience. I'm not asking you to be, to detach such a way that even your family members, you don't love them. No. Love your family members. You have a good time with your brother, sister, parents, whatever. Enjoy the good time. Appreciate it, right? But don't cling on to that memory, you see? So it is not about detaching. The word detach is not a good word.
Okay,
right?
then what's the meaning of detach actually?
Well,
What's the meaning of detach is
Right?
Not, isn't it
Excellent.
not attached? What's the
Yeah,
meaning of
non-attaching. Personalizing and attaching, there are some subtle differences.
okay, please explain.
Personalizing means you are bringing it inside, that this is mine. You're creating this enjoyment as this is mine. I want to hang on to it. That is the personalizing part of it. Attachment is part of that. Now, the opposite of that, not to personalize, is basically say, I have experienced this experience. It's a wonderful experience, but I'm not going to cling on to it. It's just an experience, but that doesn't mean I push it away. Detach is pushing it away. No, no, no. When you push something away, when you fight it, it fights back and it hurts you more. For example, if you're sitting there meditating and you feel certain pain in your legs or your back, and you say, oh, I hate this pain, and you want to push it away, you want to get rid of it, it becomes a conflict. Whatever is a conflict is suffering. But if you say, oh, I feel the pain, there is feeling of pain, but this pain is just a feeling, and I'm actually teaching you my technique. When you feel pain, whether it is a dentist pulling a tooth out, or whether you're sitting there meditating and then certain part of your body is feeling the aches, or whether nighttime when you're sleeping and this mosquito is disturbing you, just think of it as, oh, this is unpleasant. It's just a feeling. Think of it as it is just a feeling. Don't think of it as it is hurting me. You see the difference? This is just a feeling. Unpleasant as it is, unpleasant as it may be, but don't think of it as it is hurting me. So if you're sitting there meditating and you're feeling certain aches in your body, your feet or whatever, and you start saying, oh, this pain is hurting me. Now you start thinking like that, you are not going to be able to meditate successfully. But if you observe that pain as a sensation, oh, this is just a sensation. I have experienced an unpleasant sensation. Let it be. Abandon it. That's why it's to be abandoned. Let it go. Don't cling on to it. Let it go. And there are, in a non-meditation environment, there are 5 techniques which I can send you the link. I will post the link in the Relax group so everybody can share. I gave a explanation on that. The Buddha's teachings on 5 ways we can calm the mind. Bhante has it in level 1 of the Arya Magga Bhavana book, selective thinking book. So there, the sutra is mentioned there also. I hope that answers your question.
It's very, very good. Actually, I would like it's interactive, and another thing is hearing from you directly is much clearer. When I was reading from the book, from Pante's book, honestly,
I understand what you mean. Yes.
So when you say that, yes, like yesterday, you want to answer through email, I've received your information ever since. I told myself I cannot do it anymore. I have to directly contact you and interact with you and hear from you directly. It comes directly to what my understanding is so direct. It's so clear.
Okay,
I
good.
have to thank you and very grateful for this. Really, really, I am so touched and I don't know how to explain because when you told me that you're gonna help me yesterday, I already in tears, in happy tears.
I will post all these slides in the group. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to post your question in the group if it's not a personal question, not of personal nature. Of course, when you have any one of you having a question of personal nature, then you can always contact me directly through WhatsApp. Okay? I will post these slides and go through it.
Another question I would like to ask is when you say that to personalizing the 5 constitutes of the process of perception. This one that means that every moment we're doing it in our daily life, actually we have to be aware of it, to be aware of this this the process of perception?
Just be aware of the experience. It's an experience. Everything you have is an experience. It's nothing personal.
Oh.
Everything is an experience, nothing personal. If somebody shouted at you and scolded you, that's just an experience. He was just expressing himself, nothing personal.
Wow.
You see? If you think of it like that, then you don't get hurt. You can even take it one step further, you know. If it is something unpleasant, think of it differently. You know, I share with you one very wonderful experience. When I was a young man working in a large corporation, I was working for a multinational foreign company, and there the bosses are very, very strict. And one of the boss was a very nasty boss. Every time I did something which was not the way he wanted, he started to shout at me. He sometimes even used foul language. Every time I did something that was according to his request, he never said thank you. And there were even times he criticized whatever I did right. So I got to a point where, okay, how do I deal with him? Every time he shouted at me, and then when he was using foul language on me, I think in my mind, oh, gorilla from the zoo. This gorilla just escaped from the zoo. So I actually changed the way I perceive it. By changing the way I perceive him, it didn't hurt me because I did not think of him as my boss at the time. If I were to think, oh, this is my boss, he's going to pay my salary, he will approve my promotion or not demotion or whatever. If I think like that, I will be suffering. So in other words, depending on that experience, sometimes you have to learn to depersonalize it and think of it as changing the meaning of it. So when he started shouting at me using foul language, in my mind, I just thought, oh, gorilla escaped from the zoo again. Then I don't feel anything. But if I started thinking, oh, he's paying my salary, he's angry with me, he's so upset, he may not give me the promotion. If I start thinking like that, it's hurting me.
Okay, let me ask you, if you the way you say like this, that means actually, is this samadhi? Is this samadhi in the
eightfold way? Yes.
Yes. Is this called samadhi?
Not exactly. Samadhi, the Buddha was referring to understanding, firstly, understanding what the Four Noble Truths is all about. That's really what the Buddha meant by samadhi. And that understanding is to understand the condition of suffering, the causes of suffering that you need to abandon, and so on. That is really what samadhi is about, in respect to the Buddha's teaching. But you can say, changing
our perception is not samadhi.
No, not really, not exactly. That is just a technique to help you reduce your suffering. That in itself is not what the Buddha meant by samadhi.
So actually, it's actually only letting go, right?
Learning how to let go, understanding that you have to let it go, that is samadhi. Understanding that you have to let it go, that is samadhi. That is the second noble truth, right? That is to be understood, and that is to be abandoned.
Oh.
Understanding these things, learning to abandon it, that is samadhi. So samadhi is referring to the teachings of the Buddha. What is the right thing to understand? Understanding the conditions of suffering, understanding that you need to abandon these causes of suffering, understanding that tanha is the cause of suffering, right? Lobha, dosa, moha. Understanding these things, that is samadhi. That is the basic samadhi. There is, of course, a deeper understanding. See, the Eightfold Way is not linear. It's not number 1 to number 8. It's actually circular. That's why some people draw the Eightfold Way in a circle. When you have completed learning how to meditate and experiencing some form of samadhi, you come back to right view. You come back to a deeper understanding of the right view. And the deeper understanding of the right view is to understand anicca, dukkha, anatta. See, the initial aspect of the right view is to understand the Four Noble Truths. and understand lobha, dosa, moha. All this is very easy to understand. Now you've gone through the Eightfold Way, you learn to meditate and you become good at meditation. The next thing, you can come back to right view, and now you deepen your right view. Your right view gets deeper. And the deeper aspect of right view is to understand anicca, dukkha, anatta. And this understanding of a deeper reality, this is really often called vipassana. So vipassana meditation is to take you into a deeper understanding of right view. Not just lobha, dosa, moha, but really the true understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca, dukkha, anatta is a lot harder to understand. Anicca is easy to understand. Dukkha, to some degree or so, is not so difficult to understand. But it is the anatta part which is quite a challenge to a lot of people. The anatta part is actually learning to let go the personalization. That would be anatta, the bottom one. If you are able to avoid this, if you're able not to allow this to happen, then you're actually practicing anatta. See, atta is the self. So when you begin to personalize it, you are reinforcing the self. I exist. But if you learn to let it go, you gradually, this practice of abandoning it, letting it go, gradually, it leads you to understand that there is no existence. Everything is an experience. So remember the big word, experience.
So experience is not existence?
Experience is not existence. There are two different things. Existence is a physical thing. Don't cling on to the... Experience is what goes on inside you. That is experience. You see an object. The mental image of that object arising in your mind is an experience. The rupa is an experience. Not that physical object out there. And that's why so many people wrongly translate the word rupa to mean the physical object. And that is confusing a lot of people. So the rupa is not a physical object, but rather what goes on in your mind that represented what you have perceived to be the physical object. Right? The rupa is the mental image of seeing this. That is rupa, not this physical object. That's why people get so confused. They think of rupa as that physical object, and they cannot understand how to let it go. So
okay, brother.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry interrupting. Just
No,
now
okay.
what you want to say. Finish first.
No, it's done. Finish.
Okay. I want to ask you, so I'm always trying to put, is in my bad habit that, like, for example, when you're saying that when we change the way we, it's just that, it's the, to let go. Then which part is in the Eightfold Path, Eight Noble Path? Which one are we doing then? Is it?
Well, don't try to.
Don't do that.
Don't try to over-connect that. Just come to the Eightfold Path.
I'm always trying to connect this, so I don't.
Yeah, don't over-connect it, because it's when you over-connect it, you get confused. Okay, the Eightfold Path is basically a flow of various different lessons we need to practice. The first is samadhi, that is understanding what the Four Noble Truths is. So the most basic right view is understanding what I have just mentioned about the Four Noble Truths. If you understood what I described about the first and the second Noble Truth, that is already a very good form of right view. Now, having the right view, you begin to have a right intention. You want to do the right thing. You want to purify your life. Like I said, there are three things. Commonly translated as avoid evil, do good, purify mind. But what Ven Dr Punnaji says is abandon your evil ways, live the good life, and then purify mind. Now, if you have that intention of wanting to abandon your evil ways, that is sama sankappa, the intention, the desire to do good, the desire to live a good life, the desire to purify mind. See, desire is not the same as lust. There's nothing wrong with desire. You desire to be good. You desire to become an arahant one day in your future life. You desire to become a sotapan to get started. So desires are not bad. Lust is bad. Lust is when you begin to become greedy about it, when you begin to personalize that experience. But the desire of practicing is to achieve a certain level of goodness. So in other words, having understood the Four Noble Truths, the desire to practice it so that you reduce your level of suffering, that is right intention. You cannot get rid of it. The only person who can get rid of all suffering is a person who has become an arahant. So until then, you can only have the desire to reduce your suffering. So think of it as reducing suffering by learning how to abandon. So that is where the abandonment comes in. Abandonment itself is not one of the Eightfold Path, but it is a part and parcel of this right intention, right? To abandon the evil ways. And then comes the practice of sila, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort. These are basically the practice of sila. That is part and parcel of combining right view, right intention. Now you put it into practice. Right? So don't try to be a technical person. I understand because you had an engineering background. Me too. I was an engineer also. In fact, I was a very special kind of engineer. I used to repair large mainframe computers in the 1970s and 80s. So to me, those days, everything had to be very technically connected. But no, life is not like that. Okay. Life is not technically connected. Learn to treat everything you come across as an experience. See, technical connection is all physical things. Right? Whereas the experience, basically that is learning that to treat everything you come across as an experience, then you won't try to technically connect everything. So it is not a one-to-one connection between abandoning and right intention. But abandoning is part and parcel of the practice of right intention. And then avoiding evil or abandoning evil ways is now practicing right speech, right action, all this. This is also part and parcel of live the good life. So live the good life means right speech, right action, right livelihood. This is living the good life. Then comes the meditation part. Wanting to meditate, right effort. Right effort is the beginning of meditation. When you begin to achieve a certain level of accomplishment or attainment in meditation, you now enter into right mindfulness. The last one is not right concentration. It is the right mental equilibrium. That means reaching the state of samadhi. The word samadhi translated as concentration is actually wrong. Bhante Punnaji calls it mental equilibrium. The mind becoming still, the mind becoming peaceful, the mind becoming aware of the realities anicca, dukkha, anatta. That is mental equilibrium. The wealth of the mind, the richness of the mind, true spiritual richness of the mind.
Wow. Can I ask you, can you explain the Sama Virya?
Which one? Number one.
There's Sama Sati and Sama Virya.
Sama Sati. Okay.
And Sama Virya.
Sama Virya.
Is there Sama Virya?
Not Sama Virya. Virya itself, yes. Okay. Virya is really talking about...
I don't know what's it called in the Eight Noble Paths.
It's not mentioned. It's actually not one of the Eightfold. Virya is actually a needed condition at the beginning and also at the end. At the beginning, Virya is talking about a kind of energetic energy to want to succeed. In other words, the motivation behind it. So it's a spiritual energy. It's a kind of energetic willpower to want to accomplish something. That is actually part of your right intention. Virya. Virya, translated word for word, means energy. Or some people call it willpower. So if you combine the word energy and willpower, it's actually energetic willpower. All right? Or willful energy.
To some harmonized effort. What's it?
Yes. Harmonious effort is actually talking about the meditation, wanting to practice it. So this exercise, meditation, Bhante calls it an exercise. It's not just an effort. He calls it an exercise. What's the difference between an effort and exercise? An effort is maybe, let's say, you just pick up a dumbbell. That is an effort. But what is an exercise? An exercise is every day you go to the gym, you pick up a dumbbell and you exercise and you do that. Exercise until you build up your muscle. That is exercise. Just picking up the dumbbell is an effort.
Amazing.
So meditation is an exercise. Every day you sit there, you meditate, and you begin to purify your mind. And keep doing that over and over, just like the way you do in the gym, picking up the dumbbell up and down, up and down. Now you exercise your mind by meditating until your mind becomes stilled, right? Not in an active way, but stilling the mind. So it's an exercise. That's why Bhante calls it an exercise, not just an effort. An effort is something you do. An exercise is a continuous regime of activities that lead to the result, right? So think of it as an experience. So exercise is an experience.
What about right mindfulness?
Okay. This is actually Bhante calls it harmonious attention.
What's that?
This is really has to do with when you meditate with the satipatthana, with these the four foundations of mindfulness. So this is not the forum to talk about it because that is quite deep. Okay. It goes very deep. But basically, it's talking about practicing satipatthana, the commonly called the four foundations of mindfulness. Okay, so all these are the Eightfold Way. I think in your case, the most important is to go through number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. So samadhi, and then right intentions, harmonious orientation, speech, action, lifestyle. Then you are doing avoid evil, do good, or rather abandon the evil ways and live the good life.
But actually, I also would like to. Actually, I also honestly would like to do to be able to go through Vipassana to not Nija Dukkha Anatta. That's also my really.
Yeah. Well, don't worry about Vipassana. The fact that you are asking me these fundamental things in Eightfold Way, you're not ready for Vipassana.
Okay.
Realize that. Few things you should not try to go too fast in. Vipassana, Abhidhamma. At some point in life in your future where you have cultivated enough understanding and practice, you can learn Abhidhamma, but not now. The same with Vipassana. Forget about Vipassana for now. Don't worry about it. If you can't learn to relax, you're not even ready for samatha. If you're not ready for samatha, you're not ready for Vipassana. I am of the same opinion, or rather Bhante Punnaji is also of that opinion that it's not like two different types of meditation. Samatha is one, Vipassana is another. No. The way Bhante Punnaji teaches it is you practice samatha. When you become deep in samatha, you reach a point where your mind is still. You have stopped your emotional mind. You can see more clearly. And when you're able to see more clearly, that is Vipassana. It arises as part of the practice. It is not two separate things. A lot of people teach Vipassana and Samatha as two separate things. It's not two separate things. And I'm of the opinion you cannot bypass Samatha and learn Vipassana. Yes. Simply put, if your mind cannot be calm, peaceful, and still, how can you see the realities of anicca, dukkha, anatta? Yes. See? So learn to still your mind, and that is samatha. And if you can't do samatha, forget about Vipassana. You're not ready. You can't do Vipassana. Okay. I just show you an example. Just give me a second. I need to grab a bottle from there. Okay, I will show you the example. Wait, I think I just stopped the sharing first.
I also would like to ask you because I have experience when I'm like 28.
Wait,
And
let me finish.
okay,
Let
okay.
me finish. Okay. Look at this bottle of water, okay?
Yes.
Normally, our mind, think of this as like what's going on in the mind. The mind is constantly shaking.
Yes, yes.
Practicing samatha is stilling the mind, letting the bottle stop. And when the bottle becomes adequately still, you can now see very clearly inside the bottle every speck of dirt, every single bubble, and everything inside the bottle. That seeing is vipassana. Stopping the shaking is samatha. If you don't stop the shaking, you cannot see what's inside. If you don't stop the shaking of the mind, you cannot see the realities of life. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. That's why it is not two separate practice. You have to practice samatha to the point that your mind is stilled. And that is part and parcel of right effort and right, what they call right mindfulness, but it's actually harmonious attention. So then only you are able to practice the vipassana after that. Okay, so I hope that is clear.
Very clear. Brother Billy, sorry that I'm asking all these questions because it's all my previous experiences. When I was very young, I loved to practice Qigong, you know. So it comes to a point where my body and mind is so balanced, and I feel like, you know, now I know that it's like, I have a character, my personality is I love being very quiet. But because not understanding everything and it's messed up the mind, the chitta. Now that I ask of you is when our body and mind is very tranquil, and when you say tranquil is not just being by ourselves, is it? Even in a messy place, our mind just not that it's not shaking. Is that what it means? Because
Well,
when I was young, I only when I do qigong then I feel like I'm in jhana state. But once I'm with the society, it becomes messed up. So what you're saying here is like is like the combination of like you know the body mind really calm and still in the state where you're in society and you're still very still. Is that what you mean?
I'm not too sure about your question. You know?
Uh, okay. And what I'm saying is, I have an experience where my mind and body is very tranquil and very still when
Okay,
I do
inside
qigong.
you, inside
Yeah,
you.
yeah. When
Okay.
I'm doing qigong, and I feel that it's now I can say it's like jhana state. You know, the
You,
first jhana.
whatever you call it, you may
Whatever.
not be in jhana. Don't call it
No,
jhana.
no, no. Yeah, okay. Just
Qigong
something
is
like
qigong. Don't call it jhana.
on the chitta. It feels very peaceful and very still.
Don't give it a label. When you
Okay, don't
begin
give
to
it
give it a
a
label, you're creating concepts which distract you.
Oh, okay.
Forget
Good.
about it. Not jhana. You're not in jhana. Don't try to even
Okay,
believe
okay,
that you're
okay.
in jhana. That is
Okay,
a
understood.
delusion.
Thank you for telling me this. Oh, so cool. Okay, so are you saying that we have to be in this kind of really peaceful state, even in any circumstances in life? Is
Yes, you can practice that and accomplish that. You can still your mind right in the midst of a crowd of rioters.
So that means
It's
that our
all
mind.
about seeing what is out there is just what you are experiencing. You know,
Oh,
don't think of it as, oh, I'm part of the crowd. I'm in the crowd. I'm now caught in a riot. You're not caught in a riot. Other people are rioting. There are other people rioting, not you. So you can still be peaceful in the midst of a crowd of rioters.
so cool. Okay.
Think of
And
it as an experience. Everything is an experience. And stop giving it too many labels, especially labels with very special deep meaning like jhana.
okay,
Don't
sorry.
try to imagine you are in jhana. No.
Oh, okay.
You are in jhana when your emotional mind is completely stopped, where you have gotten rid, or not gotten rid, where you have completely suppressed your 5 hindrances. Then you are in jhana. Until that time, you are not in jhana. And, you know, so from your explanation, definitely you're not in jhana. Right?
So cool. Your explanation is so cool. I think it's so clear. Thank you so much. It's so clear. It's so good that you can clear all the my dirty things out of what I.
Okay. All right. Why don't you post your questions in the group? We'll have to stop here. Otherwise, we go on for too long. Okay. So we'll stop here. Any one of you having any questions, please post in the group. I'm going to post the slides I've showed. I'm going to share it in the group so all of you can actually refer to them. Any more questions, you can post in the group. Next session, I will announce the next session probably within this week, later this week. Today's Monday. We'll probably do the next session, maybe Thursday or Friday. And we'll do it at another time because so that different people can join in. Because in Malaysia, it's morning. Not a lot of people can join in the morning because I can see there are only 2 people from Malaysia. In fact, we have 2 others from New Mexico, you know. So and you in Thailand. So 1 in Thailand, 2 from Mexico City, and 2 in Malaysia. So next time we'll do it at a different time so different people can join in. Okay. So I think that's all we have. Any more questions, please post it in the group if it is not of a personal nature. If you have something very personal you don't want to share, feel free to contact me, message me directly. Okay. So thank you all of you for joining in. Have a happy day. May you be well, comfortable, and peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Brother Ben.
Okay, thank you.
Sadhu.
Okay, sadhu. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.